Next, Senator Lakey on House Bill 83. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senators. For the record, my name is Todd Lakey, State Senator from District 23. And Mr. Chairman, if I might, Representative Crane and I have been working on this. Would it be okay if he went first and I went second?
Your choice. You can do however you want, Senator. Thank you.
Go ahead that way, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Crane, welcome to this side of the building. Just introduce yourself for the record.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good morning. For the record information, Representative Jaron Crane, District 12 in Nampa. Those were some impressive motions. I mean, if I don't want to get in the way of a good motion, if you guys have something like that lined up for us.
I would hazard a guess that you're not going to be so.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'm highly offended. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. So last session, we introduced this piece of legislation over in the House side. It passed overwhelmingly on the House side. We ran out of time to get it through the Senate here. But it's a piece of legislation that we modeled after Senate Bill 4 in Texas. Some of you might be familiar with the legal situation on the Senate Bill 4 in Texas. So I want to give you a current update on that as I called down to their deputy legal counsel. And I asked, what's going on down there? So currently, the status of that legislation is that the U.S. Supreme Court has given their initial approval to let it go into effect, and the Fifth Circuit has stated on their own. If the Fifth Circuit approves it, then the Supreme Court will probably rule in favor as well. I talked to the legal counsel in Texas and I said, is there any changes you would make to your legislation if you could go back and do this all over again? He said, absolutely not. It's great legislation. There's going to be things like that when you bring something like this forward. So no, go ahead and run it on through. So we went ahead and made our initial introduction. And once we made our initial introduction on this legislation, some groups came forward. So Representative Skog and I sat down with those groups and had some great discussions. Specifically, those are the home builders and the dairymen. They had some concerns with the legislation. So we sat down and worked through those, and we made some adjustments to that. And one of the things that we've done on this legislation is we've partnered with three great attorneys in Senator Lakey and talking to Senator Anthem and Representative Skog. So we've got some pretty big hitters when it comes to the legal side of what we're doing here. The fact is that millions of illegal aliens have come into this state, 35,000 in this state, but into this country over the last 4 years. The Trump administration estimates that on a conservative side, we're looking at 8 million. And if you look at other sources, they're going to tell you 30 million. There was an article put out by the Idaho Statesman last March that 35,000 of those individuals are here in the state of Idaho. The question is where and what's going on with that. So the purpose of this legislation is to give our state and local law enforcement agencies the ability to work with the federal government in order to combat this issue. So if we look at what the Trump administration has done, in his first week, he was able to go ahead and get to work on this issue, and he got 35,000 people and started deportation flights. If you look at 3,500 people, if you look at that number and you continue on that trajectory, that's about 182,000 people per year. So over his 4-year term, we're looking at only 728,000 people out of potentially 8 million on a conservative number or 30 million on that number. So we're not even going to make a dent. So states are going to have to start leaning into this, pressing forward and taking action to help the federal government with this issue. I'm going to allow, at this time, I'm going to yield my time to Senator Lakey and have him come forward.
Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Todd Lakey, State Senator from District 23. It's been a pleasure to work with Representative Crane and Representative Skog on this one. Senators, Representative Crane did a good job describing the lack of border security and the corresponding unfortunate increase in criminal activity, whether it's drugs or human trafficking. And we're taking action now at a federal level, but I think because of the size of the problem, it's important that we also make some efforts as a state to take steps in this regard as well. So you have, just described for you, you have House Bill 83, but you also have an engrossment in your packet that I provided. And what we've done is work to combine the two bills, House Bill 83 and Senate Bill 1039, which was Senator Anthem's bill. And that engrossment is a draft of that combination. What we've done is essentially take mostly the front portion of House Bill 83 and the back portion of Senate Bill 1039 Our ultimate request, Senators, will be to send this to the amending order to incorporate those amendments. But let me go through the bill and describe things for you. And I'll talk mostly about talk through mostly the engrossment. But what it does, it keeps the proposed Idaho Code Section 189002 and 9003 from House Bill 83, which are the first two portions. And then it gets rid of the criminal or court-ordered deportation process in the proposed 1963-01, which was in House Bill 83, and replaces that largely with portions from Senate Bill 1039. So let me walk through that engrossment with you. This legislation, Senators, focuses on enforcement for those illegal aliens that are detained, investigated, or suspected of engaging in separate criminal activity under Idaho Code Title 18 or Title 37. So this isn't just random out there looking for folks. It's people that are involved in criminal conduct under Idaho law before this comes and takes effect. It also focuses on a cooperative approach with the federal authorities, DHS and ICE, and not a really state dictatorial approach with the state action regarding deportation itself. So the deportation piece is cooperative with the federal government, not separate state action where we're transporting individuals out back to, pick your country, wherever they may be coming from. It provides for two offenses, which are 189003 and 9004. The first one being illegal entry into the state of Idaho from a foreign nation, and then illegal reentry once you've been deported or removed or subject to an order. It also provides some affirmative defenses, basically if you're in compliance with federal law or you haven't met the criteria for action under this proposed legislation. And then it provides for the cooperative process with Department of Homeland Security. And that comes in the form of exchange of information regarding these individuals, memorandums of understanding, cooperative use of resources between the state and the federal folks, and compliance with federal immigration detainers and warrants, as long as those individuals have served their portion of any state sentence in regard to their state criminal conduct, and that it does not impose an undue burden, risk, or expense to our local or state authorities for detaining these individuals. It also provides for a crime of trafficking in dangerous illegal aliens. So those that transport those that have criminal convictions into our state are subject to that trafficking charge. There's also a sentencing enhancement. If an illegal alien is convicted of a dangerous crime and they're here illegally, then there's a requirement that there be a sentence of at least 5 years imposed. And then in 189009, it provides that after arrest and during booking, there's a determination of the individual's foreign status, whether they're a foreign national, and then the responsibility to notify Department of Homeland Security. It also provides for some conditions of release on confinement. If you're an illegal alien, you have to have served your fixed portion of your sentence. So we're not letting anybody out of prison in Idaho that's supposed to be there for their fixed term. They can be released during their indeterminate portion if Department of Homeland Security is going to pick them up and deport them, or we're releasing that individual to another state or the federal government for further criminal proceedings. And that's some language I'll be adding that's not in that engrossment currently. And also it specifies they're not eligible for participation in alternate sentencing, things like work release, sheriff's inmate labor detail, because these individuals are essentially a flight risk because they're not here legally. It provides for authority to transport to a designated federal facility, and also clarifies that the application of these provisions are interpreted in accordance with federal immigration law. Senators, that's my presentation. I'd ask again that you send this to the 14th order to incorporate these amendments, melding these two bills. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you, Senator Lakey. Senator Ruckey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Lakey, I just want to make sure I understand the 18-9002 portion and 18-9003 So 18-9002, it appears it's a misdemeanor, and it would be for situations where there's an entry from a foreign nation, but not a reentry, because that's covered in the next one.
Senator Lakey,
Mr. Chairman and Senator Ruckty, that's correct.
Okay.
follow up.
Yes, follow up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Lakey. And then the main difference then is just that reentry, both 18-9-002 and 003 require that there has been, let's see, law enforcement can only enforce the provisions of those sections when a person is detained or investigated for suspected commission of an independent crime under Title 18 Idaho Code.
Senator Lakey,
Mr. Chairman and Senator Ruckty, that's correct. That prohibits just the random selection of anyone for prosecution under this code section. And then the engrossment also adds Title 37, Chapter 27, which are the drug provisions, drug trafficking, those kind of things.
And just one last
Senator-
follow-up.
Senator
Thank
Ruckty.
you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Lakey. Title 18 is broad, so that could include traffic stops. It could include lots of reasons that a law enforcement officer might stop an individual on the street or in their vehicle.
Senator Lakey,
Mr. Chairman and Senator Ruckty, so it doesn't include all of the traffic provisions under Title 49, I think.
Okay.
But there are certainly some misdemeanor offenses in Title 18 that would provide a basis for enforcement of this.
Okay, thanks.
other questions for either Senator Lakey or Representative Crane? Not seeing